Let me call to order this meeting of the Bloomington Plan Commission for June 8th, 2020. Shall we start with a roll call?
Yes. Burrell?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, it's all coming back to me. Sorry, go ahead, Flavia.
Here. Kate?
Okay, Kate,
Here.
yeah, there you go.
Here.
Thank you.
Herrera? Kinsey?
Here.
Copper?
Here.
Sandberg?
Here.
St. John?
Here.
Whistler?
Here.
Cochran?
Here.
And Wright Randolph?
Here.
Okay,
thank you.
All right. So looks like we do have a quorum. So the first item on the agenda is minutes to be approved. It looks like we do have minutes from the April 2020 meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion, or does anyone have any suggestions or corrections for those minutes?
Move to approve those minutes.
Do we have a second? I see Commissioner Burrell raising her hand, and Commissioner Kinsey.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from April 2020. All in favor of approving? I think we'll just do this by voice vote, if that's okay. We'll need all commissioners unmuted then in order to do that.
Yeah, we're going here, I think. I think you're good.
I see a few that look like they're still muted.
Hold on.
Herrera, St. John, and Wright Randolph.
Herrera's unmuted. Let's see. Karen, here we go. And where's Tron? Okay.
So Brad, if you're asking us anything, we cannot respond to you because we're muted. So unless we're left unmuted, like you said, any changes to the minutes, I don't have any, but if I did, I couldn't have told you that.
Okay, what?
Right. So I don't know why it's different this time. So basically I'm unmuting you guys, but instead it says ask to unmute. So are you all also muting yourselves? Because last time I didn't have to do that. I could just unmute you.
Jackie,
I'm going to leave
this thing come up before, and just it's a Zoom tip. If you send that unmute out to everybody, you can leave it to the side and then leave it there to unmute later. I don't know if that'll help, but that's what I did. Is I just if I wasn't talking, I just left it there and I unmuted it the next time I wanted to speak.
You may just want to stay unmuted as commissioners for.
Yeah, so basically like right now I have, all of you we did that a little bit last time, unmuted, but then some of you would then mute yourselves, and then that makes it be so that then I then have to unmute you, I think. And so I don't know who all is doing that, but also we did last time, which I was going to ask Brad to cover again. If you want to say something, is there still the option to do the hand raising thing that we did before? We could,
I thought that
we can do
worked
that, but
well.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like, for example, right now you're all unmuted and that's fine, but for like Brad is muted and then it says I just have to ask him to unmute. I can't unmute him myself.
So
I
if
think
you
the
move,
city changed the, yeah.
yeah, so there's something wonky with the settings here. If you mute yourself, you cannot unmute yourself. You'll have to wait for the host to unmute you, which is going to make this a little tedious. I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody knows how to update that setting. I don't know off the top of my head, but I guess
Yeah.
as a general rule, try not to mute yourself unless you absolutely have to. Let's use the hand raising. If you click and look at the participants window, so if you're on the grid view at the bottom left of your screen, you can click on participants, and then on that window, there's an option to raise your hand. So you can click raise hand if you want to make a comment when we get to opportunities for questions and comments. So, let's utilize
at this
that.
point, or sure, at the points where, so for example, when Eric's speaking, I'll just mute all of you, but at the points where it's commissioner question times, if most of you don't have a lot of background noise anyway, we could just leave you all unmuted for that and have that go a little quicker probably.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I think we're prepared for a voice vote. So all of those who are in favor of approving the April 2020 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so the minutes are approved. Next up, we have reports, resolutions, and communications from staff and from commissioners. We'll start with staff. Any reports on communications
Sure.
from staff?
So you've already seen tonight, we have our new Plan Commission member, Chris Cockrum. Welcome, Chris. Sorry for you to have to join us in this odd way the first time, but we're very happy to have you with us.
Great, thank you.
So our second item under reports, resolutions, and communications is that we have, the city has a sign fee amendment proposal going forward. And I think Mr. Rooker is going to speak a little bit about that to let you guys know what's going on with that.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Plan Commission members. So the city and specifically the Economic and Sustainable Development Department is considering a series of packages. They're bringing them to various boards and commissions as well as to the City Council during the next 2 weeks to try to assist the local business community with an economic recovery during these unusual and unprecedented challenging times. Among those measures, they will be asking the Board of Public Works to work to help close down portions of Kirkwood Avenue, specifically beginning the weekend of June 19th, and to turn portions of the right-of-way into additional seating for those businesses to assist them in expanding their capacity while still maintaining safe social distancing for potential patrons. And again, this is part of a package of things that we're doing right now to try to keep businesses, local businesses, on their feet. You may also have read that I think at this point we've loaned out approximately $1.2 million to local businesses using food and beverage money as well to assist them. And another item that we've heard from the chamber that they've requested assistance with is with a relaxing of sign restrictions, and that falls, some of that falls within the Plan Commission's authority. So there's a provision of the Unified Development Ordinance that allows the Plan Commission to waive sign permit fees when the permit is being promoted by the city. And I believe that's in the memorandum that I prepared for the Plan Commission. And so we're asking that the Plan Commission during this time when it's so important for local businesses to put up signs, given the change in operations and different protocols that they have that are COVID related, it's so important for them to have some flexibility on those signs, and they're going to have additional signs. So we're asking for a waiver of sign permit fees through September 30th, 2020. And as I said, that's a deadline where there are going to be a number of different things happening at the city that expire on September 30th. If anybody has any questions about this, I'm more than happy to try to address those.
All right, are there any questions for Mr. Racker? I don't see any.
If it might-
Are there?
Sorry. I could help phrase a motion if that would be helpful when the time is appropriate.
Okay, excellent.
And I'd also like to say that I got a suggestion here that makes sense. And so I made all of you commissioners co-hosts, so you should be able to mute and unmute yourselves without interference. So just if you do need to do that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hold on.
Do we need an end date for this memorandum or the waiving fees sign applications?
Yes,
Is that
absolutely.
part of your?
The motion should waive, so, and I can phrase it for you, it should be through September 30th, 2020. That's the package of reforms that the Board of Public Works and the City Council will also be considering, all have that same end date in mind.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. And when is that something you would like us to take action on immediately?
We would, yeah. The request is to try to take action tonight. This happened very quickly, and we're trying to move very fast. It's been something that's happening quickly, largely due to the City Council's upcoming recess. So their final meeting before they go into summer recess is June 17th, and so both the Board of Public Works and this action in front of the Plan Commission and the City Council, all of that is happening this week.
Okay. Is this something that, do we have anything in writing anywhere, or is this something that you can, or you just want us to try to craft a motion here?
I could put the motion into the chat. There is a brief memorandum in the packet discussing this change.
Michael,
Yep.
we would love to see whatever motion you've crafted or hear it or see it in chat.
Otherwise, I think we could just do it off the second paragraph in that memorandum.
That would work as well.
Motion off of that. I would do that.
Yeah.
If I can, Mr. Whistler.
Yes, please do.
So pending Mr. Rauker, I'm saying that wrong, sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize. Pending whatever you're trying to type into a chat, which seems like a lot to have to do that on the fly, but a motion that the city would waive the application fees. I'm reading the second paragraph. For entities submitting sign applications between now and September 30th, and under the UDO section 20.06.040 C3E, the Plan Commission is authorized to waive application fees when an application is being actively promoted by a unit of local government. So the Plan Commission in the motion would exercise its authority to waive the sign application fees for temporary signs, which is $75 per application, and permanent signs, $125 per application through September 30th, 2020. How's that?
Second.
I think that sounds excellent. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. The motion is to waive sign applications between now and September 30th for temporary signs and permanent signs. Do we have any discussion, any questions about this from commissioners? No. All right, seeing none, let's go to the public. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this motion before we take a vote?
Brad, could you again go over the instructions on how they can get our attention that they'd like to speak briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at the speaker view, the grid view that shows, some people call it the Brady Bunch view, If you're seeing all the faces on your screen, down at the bottom, you'll see one of the buttons that says participants. Right now it's got a little number 52 next to it. So if you click on that, it'll launch another window that has a list of all the participants. And at the bottom of that, there should be a button that says raise hand. And if you raise your hand, that is equivalent of getting in line to speak at one of our in-person meetings. So once your hand is raised, the host, I think Jackie, can recognize you when it's your turn, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to make comment. And at this time, this is comment only on the motion to waive sign fees through September 30th.
Yep, and I just unmuted Mary Morgan, so you can go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Morgan. I'm Director of Advocacy and Public Policy with the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for bringing this forward so quickly. We support it wholeheartedly and would support any action to ease the situation for local businesses at this time. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't see any others. Let me check Facebook real fast. Okay, nothing.
Okay. Well, if there's no additional comment, we'll go back to Commission for any final comment before we take a vote. Any final comment? All right. Well, let's call the roll then.
Whistler,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Cockrum,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Herrera.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So that motion passes. Thank you. Any other reports or communications from staff? Okay.
I don't have any. I'm not sure if Ms. Porter had anything. Terry, if you do, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll move on.
No, I understand that some of the plan commissioners would like to make a statement about the recent events in our community and around the country. And I would ask the commissioners if they want to do that, to go ahead and lead off. I think Jillian had asked to make a statement. And after you all speak, if you would like to hear a statement from me, then I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a report before we moved to that. I feel like if I was able to jump in, I'm not sure if it's set up for the Plan Commission to give reports at the beginning or end, but it'd be real quick.
Yeah, we'll allow a report from any commissioner who wishes to give a report. If you'd like to go first, go ahead.
Please, and thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. And it'd just be a moment. We did we're moving forward with the county's CDO, Consolidated Development Ordinance. We did our virtual kickoff meeting June 4th. A lot of the focus was going to be on public engagement, and then topics of focus groups and who would be good focus groups. We had about 60 people in attendance on Zoom, and of course we had Kat's recording. Thanks, Kat's. I'll be sure to thank you on all the meetings I do. I'm sure they gotten familiar with my face by now. But thank you for always being there and willing to continue to broadcast these meetings. So there was a couple of conversations. There's a recording on Kat's. There's also a recording on MonroeCDO.com. That's where we're putting all of the information. And there's an email list you can sign up for. There's a lot of different ways that you can get involved now. There's going to be more to come. Like I said, we just did the kickoff. We're going to kind of now bring that back to the Plan Commission, to the Planning Office, and then move forward. And there will be more dates to come, and I'll be sure to communicate those dates to you as they are set. And again, you can find all of this information on Monroe, MONROE, CDO.com. And again, CDO is the Consolidated Development Ordinance. The city is the heartbeat of Monroe County, in a sense. I don't know how many people would love me for saying that, but that's how I feel. And I think that this is only part of my role as the representative of the Monroe County Plan Commission. So thank you. And like I said, more to come with set dates as they are determined.
Okay, thank you. And next, I think, Jillian, would like to
Yes.
go next? I think we have a
Ready.
statement. All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement. As a commissioner, I'm not speaking on behalf of other commissioners or anybody in an office or the staff, but I thought as a commissioner, I just wanted to acknowledge the current protests demanding racial justice across the country, including Bloomington's large Enough is Enough peaceful march and rally protesting police brutality last week. They demand our attention and action, and I know we're all reflecting on how our personal beliefs and actions and our community's practices, policies, and deeds perpetuate racial injustice. And as a commissioner, I believe it's incumbent to examine my own decision-making for racial bias, to deeply consider the impact of decisions made in Plan Commission to ensure they're not racist, and in fact, anti-racist is really the goal here, and to interrogate and strive to understand the historical roots and influence of racist acts that continue to influence policymaking. City commissions, particularly ours, that influence important issues of housing, land use, the environment, and our local economy, should take bold, admittedly challenging anti-racist action, including soliciting and including voices from racially minoritized populations in our community, identifying and dismantling racist and colonizing structures and policies, and taking decisive action to make our community more equitable and inclusive space. I look forward to making greater strides on these goals with my colleagues on the commission, the staff and leadership in Bloomington, and all members of our community towards these very important equity goals. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other commissioners who would like to make a statement or give a report at this time?
I would like to make a clarification. The kickoff meeting was May 27th, and that's relative because there might have been more people present due to current events. So it wasn't June 4th. That's the email I was just referencing, but the actual meeting was on May 27th.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to just voice support for Commissioner Kinsey's statement. I think it was well crafted, and I'm in support of what she said without saying it all again, knowing we have to.
I'll do the same.
So thank you.
Oh, sorry. I want to do the same. I just want to say I think the problems in our community and our nation, what we're protesting, aren't going to go away until we eliminate persistent and indefensible gaps in access to high quality education, well-paying jobs, safe and affordable housing, and water. And as Commissioner Kinsey mentioned, what we do on the Plan Commission affects critical issues relating to all of this. You know, it's dealing with those problems is going to take bold thinking and informed by experiences across our whole community. So although I think the commission itself can and should be as representative as it can be of the many types of housing and people found in Bloomington, I want to say that I do think the values of equity and inclusivity have been evident in the work of the staff and the commission. And I also look forward to keeping those values at the forefront of our work going forward.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Any other statements or reports from commissioners? All right, well, thank you for that. We will move on now to the petitions on our agenda tonight. First, there's one petition that is to be continued to the July 13th, 2020 meeting. That is SP 11-20, Johnson Creamery at 400 West 7th Street. That's a request for site plan approval to allow the construction of a mixed-use building with 58 dwelling units. And that is being continued. I believe that's been administratively continued. We don't need to take any action on that if I'm not mistaken. Can you clarify that? Okay, excellent.
Yes.
All right, so then we do have
Mr.
two.
President, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to, I guess, since we didn't really address this, we do have a lot of participants. I'm not sure if they're here for these two petitions. And I'm not sure if we're, is there public comment at the end of the agenda? That's not typically we do.
No.
So long story short, are we asking them to stick around because they think there's a chance to talk? Or are we going to let them know right now there's no chance to talk? Or if we do want to listen to what they have to say, I would say we suspend our rules and let the public speak first. But either way, I think we should make it clear because I doubt they're all here for these two petitions.
Well, I don't really have any way of knowing that. We most certainly will have public comment on both of these two petitions as we
that
would
pertain to the case. I'd like to ask my colleagues what they think or what direction you would prefer to take, President Whistle.
I'll just go ahead and,
Whistler.
sorry, Tron. I'll just go ahead and clarify for those of you who are new or haven't been around quite as long. Our agendas are published and they are always the same format, and that format does not include a public comment on items not on the agenda portion like would happen at a council meeting maybe or a commissioners meeting. That's not something that's typically included at the Plan Commission level. So I think that's what Tron is asking, is whether or not you all want to suspend your rules and include that tonight. Mr. Rooker may be able to speak to more what you would have to do that, what limits you would have to put on it, et cetera. But yes, that is not something that this body typically addresses.
Yeah, so just to, I guess to clarify, my preference would be to just continue as our normal agenda would be, but of course, any commissioner is free at any time to make a motion to suspend the rules and change the agenda. So that's something you'd like to do, feel free to do so. But in the absence of such a motion, we'll just continue as we normally would.
I guess I'm going to just seek some clarification here. So, Trent, your question is that, or the assumption is that there are folks who have joined us here today who are not here to speak on the 2 or potentially 3 petitions, not on the continued petition or the other 2 that are before us. That's what you're indicating.
Right.
Okay.
And
okay.
I'm just, hate to address this difficult conversation, but I just feel like there are people that attended this meeting that do want to speak to kind of the current events that you alluded to earlier today. And if we would like to do that, I would just like to know that to alert them that they have the chance to do that at the end of this meeting or maybe at the beginning. But if we don't intend to let people speak, that we just let them know now so they can drop out of the meeting.
Thank you.
I am a non-voting member, but I am allowed to make a motion. So,
Sure.
I mean, I would make a motion to suspend the rules at the end of the meeting. I think these petitions have been here for a while, so we can move those accordingly to engage in public comment. And I guess logistically, if Jackie has the ability, we could just kind of set it to like a 3-minute 3 to 5 minutes worth of speaking time. Or, we have 50 participants. I wouldn't assume it's a lot. I'd hate to do this just for 4 or 5 people to speak, but it's worth it to let them know. And I think it's worth it to let them speak too. So I'll make that motion. If anyone wants to get behind it, that would be great. If
Sure. So
not,
Tron, I just want to clarify. So your motion is to suspend the rules, to add to our agenda a public comment period for items that are not on the agenda, and to allow anyone from the public to speak for 3 minutes each during that period.
yeah, and if anyone needs to go twice, or we could be a little relaxed there, but yeah, exactly. Yes, as
I would
stated,
second
that would
that.
be my motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
I
second.
just want to clarify, because I'm not sure what they're going to talk about. It feels like, Tron, you know what people are here to talk about. I think
No, I just want to open it. I think we have the opportunity to listen today, and we should take advantage of that. And if it keeps us here for another hour, so be it. That's kind of
yeah,
my feeling.
I guess in my mind, I'm not against what you're proposing. I just would like to clarify, because I felt like maybe you knew. So there's the one topic of anti-racism that Commissioner Kinsey brought up. That's a possibility. And the other would be this question about the appointment of a plan commissioner. And in my mind, people are here for either one of those.
Right. I wouldn't want to limit it. I would just want to add
Yeah,
comments that aren't on our agenda, and
Yeah. Right. So I just want to be clear.
hope
It could be
people are
about,
appropriate.
yeah, it could be about
Yes.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be clear. Let's have Mr. Rooker weigh in. Yeah, and let's be clear. Let's have Mr. Rooker weigh in. We can't limit what they're going to speak about. If you're going to open it up for public comment, not on the agenda, it could be literally anything.
Right.
So I don't know, Mike, if you might have a comment about what they would need to consider, or what limits they would need to include.
Yeah, I think you guys have the framework correct here. You can't limit the content. If you're going to allow general public comment, you have to allow general public comment on any topic. So you can't limit the content in that way. You can set a time limit for it. I do also want to be clear, there are going to be additional public meetings, quite a few of them coming up, where these comments would be very appropriate. The City Council, of course, is meeting on Wednesday evening. The Board of Public Safety is meeting next Tuesday, and they always allow generalized public comment. The Board of Public Safety, of course, being the board that governs the police department for the City of Bloomington, the Civilian Review Board. So there are other forums, lots of other forums as well, for folks to attend, and we certainly hope and encourage people to attend those meetings and comment at those meetings as well, of course.
Great.
My
Thank you.
comment on this is we need to honor the people that are here for their plans to be approved, and they should take priority. We are the Plan Commission, and that's our job. And if there are public comments, it should be done at the end.
So
that was part of my motion.
Yeah, that is the motion that's on the floor, is to add an agenda item at the end of the agenda to allow for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So I think that the motion's on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion, or are we ready to vote on that motion?
I'll call the question.
Okay. I don't know. Do we need to have a voice or have a roll
Yes,
call vote?
no, we need to have a roll call. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So go ahead and let's call the roll then, please.
Okay. Burrell,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Herrera, he was having technical difficulties. I'm not sure he's with us.
Hey.
Yes.
Okay,
There we
great.
go.
Thank you. Copper,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Cochran,
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes. We will have a public comment period upon conclusion of our two petitions on the agenda tonight. So moving on, the next item is a petition for PUD 10-20. That's for Habitat for Humanity at 700 West Guy Avenue. This is a request for an amendment to the preliminary plan and district ordinance for the Thompson PUD to add 8.46 acres to allow 70 single-family lots. This also is a request to delegate the final plan approval to staff. And we have Eric Gulick here to present. Eric, are you with us?
Just a sec. You might have had some.
Sorry.
Eric, are you there?
I'm here, but I can't share my screen.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, hold on. Let me just check. Make sure you're. Oh, I'm sorry. Just a sec. Okay, try it again. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I think we got it here. Okay, first case, PUD 10-20. This is a petition for Habitat for Humanity for 8.5 acre property that is on the southwest side of town. The property has split zoning on it. A portion of it is zoned R2, and a portion of this lies within the Thompson PUD. So as you can see on the site plan, or I'm sorry, on the GIS location map on the right side of your screen, this is located at the west end of Cherokee Drive, Chambers Drive, Duncan Drive, Guy Avenue, and then a section of Bernard Drive stubs into the south side of the site. So the petitioners are requesting an amendment to the preliminary plan and the district ordinance for Thompson PUD to add the 8.46 acres of this property into the Thompson PUD to allow for 70 single-family homes. So they're also requesting delegation of final plan approval to staff. So real quick, I'll just kind of show the aerial photograph of the site. It is undeveloped. There is a garage that is on the far southeast side of the property that's accessed from Guy Avenue. So the red line represents the property boundaries. So you can see there's a little bit of the Thompson PUD to the north. So here is the zoning for the area. So the Thompson PUD is outlined in the bold black line. So the petition site is in the dashed blue line that I have drawn. And you can see the residential zoning that kind of makes up 3/4 of the site. So the petitioners are requesting to amend the Thompson PUD to fold this in for a couple different reasons. One of those being that the site has split zoning on it now. It is in the Thompson PUD. This is on parcel D of the Thompson PUD, which you can see right here. This is the Thompson PUD parcel map. Again, the site location is outlined in the blue on the bottom southeast side of the site. So parcel D allowed for single-family residences in this area. It allowed for the residences along Chambers Drive, Cherokee, Duncan, in order to kind of facilitate residential houses in that area of the PUD because it was adjacent to residential housing. It was appropriate in that area. So the parcel D did allow for single-family housing. So the petitioners, with their request, they want to create 70 single-family lots. These lots would range from 4,000 to 3,000 square feet in size. So if you recall from the conversion map discussions that we went through just a few months ago, as the city was converting previous zoning districts to the new zoning districts, all portions of the city that were zoned RS got converted to R2 zoning. All portions that were zoned RC were converted to R3 zoning. So the petitioner, as I mentioned, with the lot sizes that they are looking for here, the 4,000 to 3,000 square foot would not be possible in the R2 districts, even with the single family reduced lot sizes that are in the UDO. So I just briefly mentioned that the lot sizes and the layout that they're proposing here is almost identical to their development on the Beeline Trail. The lot sizes, setbacks, et cetera, is pretty much identical to that. So the current zoning of the R2 would not allow for them to get down to the 4,000 and 3,000 square foot lots. So they have to request this rezoning in order to accomplish that product. So amending the Thompson PUD seemed to make the most sense, as a portion of the property is already in the Thompson PUD. The Thompson PUD kind of foresaw and encouraged some residential dwelling units at the far southeast corner because it was adjacent to that, and it helped the businesses within the Thompson PUD. So the request for the expansion of the Thompson PUD was based on those two aspects. The split zoning, and that the zoning districts that are there now would not allow for the lot sizes that they are shooting for. So what the Planning Commission is approving tonight is just the district ordinance and the preliminary plan for the property. So the preliminary plan shows the layout of roads, approximate layout of the lots, and then the district ordinance approves the standards, the development standards that will govern that development. So we are not approving a site plan. We are not approving a plat, but the petitioner has prepared what those will look like in order to help base some of the decisions that are before the Planning Commission tonight. So one of the things that we are required to review with rezoning petitions certainly is the comprehensive plan. And there are several aspects of the comprehensive plan that support this petition. Certainly the owner occupancy and the affordable housing is very heavily discussed and promoted in the comprehensive plan. Neighborhood enhancement of public improvements is again discussed in the comprehensive plan. I'll kind of talk about that in a second. Optimizing pedestrian connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods is also an essential component. Immediately to the west of this property is the RCA Community Park. So that is immediately to the west of that, and the petitioners are tying into that with a multi-use path that they've kind of shown at around the central portion of the site. The petitioners are also working on, and I discussed this in my staff report, a connection on the north side of the property. So real quickly on the aerial photograph here, I'm just going to kind of outline a corridor that runs through the north side of this site. It connects from Rogers Street all the way over to Weimer Road, and it has a large electric transmission line that runs through that corridor. So the Parks Department has been looking at this corridor for a while as a prospective area that would provide a major link in the alternative transportation network in the southwest portion of the city. It would connect to the Clear Creek Trail and Wapahani Park over on Weimer Road. This corridor ties in literally to the front door of Switchyard Park. So this petition is looking at ways that they can contribute to the possible construction of that park. So we're continuing to have those conversations with the petitioner and the Parks Department, but that is something that would be an aspect of this petition in terms of the pedestrian connectivity and improvements and enhancement of public improvements in this area. So the comprehensive plan certainly encourages many aspects of this petition. So as I mentioned, this petition is requesting a specific set of district ordinance guidelines and standards that are being proposed. The development and the district standards are based on the R4 zoning district. So the R4 zoning district allows for a lot size of 4,000 square feet, minimum lot width of 35 feet, side yard setbacks of 5 feet, and a rear yard of 25. So the petitioners are requesting to amend that rear yard setback to 20 feet instead of 25. They're requesting for the minimum lot width to be allowed to be 30 feet rather than 35 feet for the attached residences only. So the attached residences are the ones that are kind of along the multi-use trail, kind of on the north central portion of the site. Those are proposed to be 30-foot wide lots. So that is one of the specific district standards. And then, as I mentioned as well, the minimum lot size of 3,000 square feet and 4,000 square feet for the minimum lot size. So one of the other things that is being requested with this would deal with the further subdivision that would come down the line. The traditional subdivision type requires a minimum of 67% of the lots be served by an alley. This petition is proposing 57%. So that would be for the lots that are located in the central portion of the site, as well as just to the east of those. Those are all alley served. Due to a lot of the trees that are being preserved along the property boundaries, they're not able to incorporate an alley through all of those lots as well as preserve the trees. So one of the standards that they're requesting here would be to allow for the 57%. So one of the other unique aspects of this that I briefly talked about at the beginning revolves around a garage and workshop that is at the southeast portion of the site. Habitat would like to be able to utilize that during the construction of this development for the on-site construction office, as well as to store some of their building materials. So that is located on the southeast side. So we address that in our staff report, as well as with a condition of approval. So all of the public streets within this development would be public. They would have on-street parking. One of the other aspects, and again, this is not specific to the approval tonight, but deals with the subdivision in the future, would be to allow for some of these streets to not have on-street parking. The traditional subdivision type requires that. So they are requesting for the extension of Chambers and for Duncan to not have that on-street parking. Real quickly, I'll just kind of talk about those streets. Chambers and Cherokee and Duncan and Guy to the east are very narrow streets. In some instances, there is no dedicated right-of-way, and the travel lanes are very narrow. So in keeping with that kind of layout, it doesn't really work to extend those and have the on-street parking. So the petitioners are simply requesting for those two extensions to not have the on-street parking. But that's something that the plat committee would deal with, or the planning commission, whichever board hears the preliminary plat. However, we did want to call that out in early conversations here. But all of the streets would be public, the alleys would be public, they would be dedicated and built to all of our standards. So with that, as I mentioned, the specific 4 standards that are being requested that deviate from the code are outlined in the staff report and are on the screen right now. So we have expressed to the petitioner some concerns about making sure that we've got a diversity in architectural styles. Again, this is something that was brought up with the Beeline neighborhood. The petitioners came up with several different renderings and architectural styles for housing in order to make sure that we did have some diversity. So we will continue to have those conversations. We did propose a condition of approval that dealt with that. So they have submitted a rendering that shows some different gables, patio styles along the front. So we'll continue to explore those conversations and deal with that with the final plan approval. But we do have a condition that at least guarantees that. So this is a rendering looking along that multi-use trail that I mentioned connects to the RCA park to the west. So you can see the prospective houses and kind of how that would look and feel with the trail running through the middle of the development. This provides a central connectivity for this project to help promote connections to the park that is immediately to the west. So the location of this development is very unique and ideal and an excellent place for some increased density in housing, especially affordable housing, and next to a major employment center, such as all the businesses that are within the Thompson Park just to the north of this. So as I kind of just mentioned, the PUD amendment provides a very unique and needed housing type within the community. It is infill development next to housing, next to employment, next to a city park. So it's exactly the kind of development that the comprehensive plan encourages. So we are recommending approval of the waiving the required second hearing and forwarding the petition to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation and the 6 conditions that I've listed in the staff report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Is there anyone from the petitioner who'd like to add to the presentation?
Okay, let's see. If you want to talk, do the turn. Yeah, okay, here we go, Mark. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, this is Mark Fife. I'm here with Linda Fife. We're the owners of the house and property at 812 West Chambers. That's at the end of the dead end street right now. And we just
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. This is, we're not at time for public comment yet. Right now, we're just looking for someone representing the petitioner.
Okay, we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
We will have a chance in a moment.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
but right now, we're just looking at if someone representing the petitioner who wanted to add to the presentation.
So I saw that Nathan raised his hand.
I did.
Nathan is representing petition. There we go.
Yeah, am I able to share my screen as well?
Hold on, I can do that just a sec.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, sorry.
Makes sense.
Okay, Nate, you should be able to go ahead.
Okay. So you can see my screen? Nope. Jackie, are you, let's see.
I can't see your screen. We still see Eric's, but you should be able to share yours.
I think he'll need to stop for.
Yeah, I can, let me stop sharing mine and see if that helps.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm looking for where to share mine.
You're fine.
It should be on the bottom of your screen, Nathan. If you hold your cursor over the bottom.
There it is. Yep.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. All right. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, my name is Nathan Ferrer. I'm the Director of Land Development and Production for Habitat for Humanity. I'm joined by Barry Clapper from Spring Point and Katie Stein from Smith Rehab. And then Wendy Goodlett, our CEO, is also with us. So good evening, and thank you so much for being a part of our first public hearing for Habitat's Osage Place community. It's been a long time in coming. We are building Osage Place to further our mission to eliminate poverty housing by building decent, affordable homes in partnership with qualifying families. Since our affiliate was founded in 1988, we've housed 740 people, and we just completed our 208th home. We've been so successful, Habitat has been so successful in the world and in our community because it's based on a simple model. Future homeowners contribute through sweat equity by building their own homes and contributing to homes of other future homeowners. Additionally, they participate in home ownership and financial planning classes. By the time they close on their own home and sign off on their affordable mortgage, they have put in an incredible amount of time and effort. And this results in Habitat families becoming proud and responsible and tax-paying homeowners. As you all know, we have a lot of urgency in our community. 1 in 5 residents here live in poverty. There's a number of stats there and a number of resources out there talking about how much we need more affordable housing. Habitat homeowners pay back their mortgages over 15 to 30 years. This benefits the community in a lot of ways, listed there on the right. I mentioned property taxes, the amount of home equity that's developed by these homes. Last year, we had 6 homeowners pay off their mortgages, and their foreclosure rate is less than the national average. It's less than 1%. This will be our 3rd community that we've built. We've learned quite a bit from the last 2. I think Eric mentioned Trailview, the Trailview neighborhood, which in our view has been an incredible success. Those lots are actually a little smaller than these lots here at Osage Place. As mentioned, we want to maximize density so that we can carry out our mission to the highest degree possible. We see incredible points of connectivity. Pedestrian connectivity there's going to be a lot of it here. As Eric mentioned, the two trails that would connect RCA Park and Switchyard Park to the neighborhood. And then the additional factor is that we plan to build all of these homes to be zero-ready energy homes, which means essentially they're Energy Star Plus, meaning that every house will be ready for solar installation if homeowners choose to go that path. So that's our brief statement. We are here to answer questions. We thank you for your time. Oh, timeline really quickly, sorry. So we're hoping that the plat application will continue as planned and that by the end of this year, we will have final plat approval. Our hope would be that for phase 1 infrastructure, we would be able to start next March and complete that by the fall so that we could begin building habitat houses. The second phase of infrastructure, we would hope to begin in fall of 2023 and a year later, beginning on those houses in the neighborhood. So what questions can we answer for you?
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer. Are there any questions from commissioners at this time for either staff or for the petitioner?
Excuse me, Brad, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually for Eric. So Eric, how is the parking managed along Chambers and Duncan now, and how do you feel that transition will be going from a non-parking street into, if it is a parking street, or do they allow parking on those streets now?
Okay, sorry, good question, Chris. So right now, Duncan, Chambers, Cherokee, I would have to check real quick to see if there are any signs that prohibit on-street parking. But right now, the streets aren't wide enough to park on and even still be able to pass along. They're just that narrow in some instances. You may not even have two 10-foot travel lanes. So given how narrow those were, tying into those, they will be wider, so they will be a guaranteed 10-foot travel lanes for the extensions of those. But given just how narrow they are and those few extensions, and I'll see if I can share my screen here again, that we can look at the site plan. The few lots that are on those are alley served. And there is on-street parking just next to them. So the lots that are being affected here still have on-street parking pretty much right in front of them. The on-street parking just kind of deals with the guest parking for those particular areas. They'll have dedicated spaces for the residents that live there. And so the on-street spaces there just kind of help supplement that. So as you can see in their site plan, and I'll zoom in just a little bit on those areas, you can see how narrow Duncan Drive is right there, and how it's widening out to at least a guaranteed 10-foot travel lanes. So it's just so very narrow right now. I'd be surprised if there's even room to park a car and still drive on Duncan. Same thing on Cherokee. Chambers might be a little bit wider, but they're very narrow streets. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. It makes me think of the management of the parking along those narrower streets, but I do like the improvement.
So most of the houses along those have longer driveways. So I think that helps some of the parking needs along there. They've got dedicated driveways. They're longer. I'd have to pull up Google Street View to know real quickly if there are any signs that say no on-street parking or not. So give me a second. I can do that. If we want to answer some more questions, I can come back.
Okay. Are there any other questions from commissioners at this time? Looks like Commissioner Kinsey has a question.
Yes, I have one. Unfortunately, though, it might require Eric's attention, so I don't know if I.
No, go ahead. I'm still listening.
Okay, all right.
I can
So my question is about the your discussion about the concern about monotony of design. And I was trying to figure out if that's really addressed in, I guess you were referencing condition number 5. To me, that didn't strike me, condition 5, as addressing the design aspect as you were describing it when we talked. And I wonder if the number 5 references 4 housing elevations. And I wondered, what is the elevation difference that is mentioned in the condition?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes. So when I use the word elevations, I was referring to the look of the houses from the street. Not simply a vertical elevation topographic wise, but the different housing types that people have to choose from. How do the gables look? How do the patios look? Those small little elements. So that was kind of just the same concerns that were dealt with the Beeline Trail neighborhood, just to have different housing options available for how houses look, so that we didn't have the same looking houses repeated over and over again.
Okay. I get that. I was trying to clarify if the language elevation just struck me as not as clear. And I just wanted to make sure that, if that matches and that language is understood by everybody, then I'm fine with that. But I just wanted to make sure I was reading that clearly.
Sorry. Yes, that really is referring to the renderings, the architectural view of the house.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, any other questions from commissioners?
I have a question for the petitioner. I'm just curious, with the 70 lot sizes or 70 single family residences being affordable housing that Habitat does so well, what is your anticipation on how long it will take to put people in all those homes? Is it like 5 years or is it 2 years or?
We anticipate that this will take us about 7 years to build out this neighborhood.
And so, sorry, when you say, so build out you're talking about actually building the homes?
No, so we are a little different than other developers in that we are housing people as we go.
Right.
First phase, we would hope to be done in 2023 or 2024. And that'll be 30 homes, followed very shortly by closing on those homes with Habitat homeowners.
Right, that's right, because you only build when you have people. That's right, I forgot about that. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And then I had a question for Eric. There was something about in the let's see, I'm gonna go back on the 6 conditions recommended by the planning department. Could you talk one more time about, was it the trees? Was that on here? The tree plots. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Tree plots have to be widened?
Yes. So the newly, or not newly, somewhat new, the transportation plan calls out for sidewalks to be 6 foot wide and minimum tree plots of 6 foot wide as well. So the petitioners are showing 5 foot sidewalks, 5 foot tree plots. However, the transportation plan calls out for 6 foot. So our recommendation is that we follow the transportation plan and have 6 foot sidewalks and 6 foot tree plots within this development.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners with a question for staff or for the petitioners?
Sorry, Brad. I actually have one more question that's not really about the design or features, but it's about the process related to the request for delegation of final approval. So I think this might go to staff. So my question is more about how the public is noticed about the final staff, and if there's any room for the public to have input on at that level. So if we were to move with the recommendation here and go with that straightforward, there aside from maybe city council meetings, there are really no other opportunities then for public comment. Is that right?
Correct. So if final plan approval is delegated to staff, there is not a public hearing for that. There would be another public hearing for the plat. So the primary plat that would be approved with this would have a public hearing. People would get notices on that. But the final plan approval would not go to a public body. That would just be done at staff level.
And there would be at least one more hearing at the city council for PUD amendment.
Oh yes, yes. This petition itself certainly has another series of hearings in front of the Common Council.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on what we could be moving towards. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, then I think it is time to go to the public for public comment. If you are a member of the public and you'd like to make public comment, if you could try to raise your hand through that participant window. I believe Jackie will unmute you when it is your turn. You'll have 5 minutes to make your comment. Please, as soon as you are unmuted, if you would first just state your name for the record, we appreciate that. And Jackie, I don't know, if you have a way to keep them apprised of their time remaining?
Oh, I might. Let me see if I can do that real fast. Hold on just a second.
It's as easy when we're live and in person,
Yeah.
but everything's a little trickier.
Sure.
Brad, I can share my screen and I have the timer pulled up. If that helps.
Yes. Eric, will you do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just to not lose track, I see one of our participants physically raising her hand, which is a totally polite thing to do. So I just want to make sure that someone else has noticed that, because it doesn't seem like she has motioned on the official chat. So let's
Got it. Yes, we will not forget. I've unmuted Mr. Fife since he had already begun before when I unmuted him for the petitioner statement. So yes, we will go to her next. But Mr. Fife, you can go ahead, and Eric, you can start the timer.
All right. Yeah, sorry for speaking out of turn earlier. This is Mark Fife. I'm here with Linda Fife. We're the property owners at 812 West Chambers. That's at the end of the dead end on Chambers. So this project is essentially happening in our backyard. I just have one concern here about the extending of Chambers into a neighborhood. The end of Chambers that connects to Rogers is like 2 car lengths from the Rogers and Rockport intersection, and it's already pretty seriously impacted by that intersection. And I'm concerned that an increase in vehicle traffic would be detrimental just based on how much traffic we already have and how difficult it is, just getting out of our neighborhood. Also wanted to point out, we do have a parking signs that say no parking on Friday nights, I believe. I don't remember the exact times, but it's neither respected nor enforced as far as I know. Street parking is very common on Chambers, and many of the homes that are already here don't appear to have ample parking for the number of vehicles owned by the people who live there. I do want to say thanks for saving the trees. We got these nice pine trees on the edge, like just across the edge of our property, and it looks like in the plan those trees will remain. So just want to say yes, keep those trees there. They provide nice shade for us, and they look good. But just wanted to suggest that if the new part of Chambers and the existing part of Chambers could be just not open to vehicle traffic. If pedestrian and bicycle traffic could go through, but maybe not cars, that would more or less satisfy our concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just a sec. Let me go here.
Just while we're
Okay,
doing that,
yes.
just a kind of a reminder that.
Yeah, I've clicked on you, Oakley Carlisle, but you'll then have to unmute yourself.
We cannot hear you. You're gonna have to unmute yourself by clicking.
Okay, can you hear
There you go.
I got you now. Just a quick reminder for all those here from the public. You know, if you have questions, this is not a time for back and forth since the clock is running. But if you ask your questions, we'll do our best to get answers to you when we go back to our final comment.
Thank you. I'll make this quick because I'm really hungry. Thank you so much for your information concerning this. I happen to live right next to the playground on RCA Park. And I'm concerned for a number of things. I was one of the first residents to move into that area 30 years ago. I was the second house that was built. And I'm concerned for one of the density. I think it's a great thing to have affordable housing because I was of that I was of that person that needed affordable housing, but I was in a starter house. I went through a full mortgage through a bank, and that was very difficult for me as a single person, no children, and just starting out in a job. So I applaud this idea. However, my concerns is that for 30 years, I've seen nothing but a lot with deer and wild animals and habitat, natural habitat. My concern is that with the density of extra housing, that will bring on the people that will be the primary homeowners. David, move to a thing so it doesn't vibrate. The primary homeowners of the habitat houses are good people like myself. But we're not sure how you go about screening and who comes in afterwards. I am from Detroit, and I've seen results of affordable housing, the good part and the bad part. And what happens afterwards? Affordable housing has been made affordable, and it turns into a project, and the project eventually, if it's not upkept, can be turned into something else like, excuse the expression, a ghetto. So I'm very careful that we don't escalate into a problem that we already have to deal with right now in RCA Park. Right now, I'm at a dead-end street, and every night I'm dealing with someone driving into the park, dealing with some type of illegal activity. And it's very scary for me. And I'm concerned that with the congestion of more housing, it will just perhaps add on to this activity. And if I may sound, I'm just being real right now because I've been around a while and I see what this is, what has happened to friends who have also been in habitat houses. I think it's a wonderful idea, but 70 houses in such a small area, I've looked at the plan and it looks conceivable, but that's very little lot. That's a very small amount of lot. And we're actually on top of each other, on top of that. And another question I have is, what will that do to the value, the other homeowner values of their home, the equity that they built in their home? Will the value of their homes continue to go up or will they go down?
Okay, thank you. And ma'am, did you state your name for the record? I'm not sure.
My name is Verdina Oakley Carlisle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you. Okay.
Who do we have
I'm
next?
trying to unmute Willow Hughes, so you'll have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hello, thank you. I also am an adjacent property owner. My name is Willow Hughes. I live at 2024 South Bernard. As my street is a connecting street to this development, I have questions about, could you perhaps re-clarify the timeline of the project and also give perhaps from experience with other developments what construction phases will look like on the adjoining street. I also have concerns about the habitat destruction. There is a lot of beautiful natural wildlife here, and I am concerned about that and how far back it develops into the tree line. I believe those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, going to you, Greg Alexander. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Greg Alexander. I'm really impressed by this project, to be honest. I'll start with one of the most awesome things is that it connects 5 streets that really should already be connected to each other. The transportation plan that the city adopted last year says that there should be a new connection there, and this project includes that new connection, and that is just incredibly awesome. I can't overstate the benefits. The people that live on Cherokee, their kids will play now with the kids that live in the other neighborhood that used to be almost completely inaccessible, even though it was literally 500 feet away. It is amazing what that does. Last year, I came to all these meetings and I pointed out that there were no sidewalks. And that was really detrimental to the projects you approved last year because they only had one entrance for the most part. They were essentially a cul-de-sac that opened onto a highway, and then the highway didn't have sidewalks. Luckily, this doesn't have that problem. We've got 5 different entrances. Not one of those is a highway. And so the fact that people will be walking in the street on Cherokee is not a huge concern. I think the density of this project is fantastic. I mean, that really is the secret recipe to affordable housing, to real affordability, not relying on subsidies or different kind of regulatory mechanisms, but actually affordable housing is density. That said, I'm a little bit concerned about this coming forward as a PUD. The UDO that was approved just a couple months ago, it says that the purpose of a PUD is, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It has the word new, imaginative, distinct, unique, innovative. And frankly, there's nothing remotely innovative about the variances that require this to be a UDO instead of just a straightforward application, or a PUD, sorry, instead of a straightforward application of the R4 zoning district. It's simply asking for smaller lots so that it can be more affordable, which is literally the entire reason for every single residential PUD that's ever come before this body. If you make the lots smaller, if you allow a higher density, then the developer, if it's a private developer, the developer thinks they can make more money. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're for profit or not, it's more affordable if you allow smaller units and a higher density. And all the variances they're asking for are just a higher density. And I don't think that's a problem with this proposal. I think that's a problem with the R4 zoning district. The intention when the UDO was passed is that the R3 zoning district would be approximately the same as the current neighborhoods, but it isn't. My house in a core neighborhood, it barely is legitimate within the R4 district. If you were to actually build my house today, I would need the exact same rear yard setback that's proposed in this plan. And so basically the core neighborhoods, when they were built 100 years ago, when Bloomington's population was 10,000, already had a level of density as dense or more dense as the R4 district. And so really the R4 district is what we should have used as the default. And then we should have an actual more dense district for new development, where we recognize the benefits that density provides to affordability and ultimately to diversity. And so that's a larger problem. I really hope you guys get a chance sometime in the next year or two to go back and fix up the R4 district so it's actually is meaningfully dense. So it's more dense than the way we were developing Bloomington when it was literally 10,000 people. We need more dense residential neighborhood styles. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Adam, I'm unmuting you, so you'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you. State
Great.
your name, please.
My name is Adam Hamill, and I live on Cherokee Drive, and I have a question about the multi-use pathway behind Cherokee. My concern is if we are going to have lighting along that pathway, and also I have a large brick shed that is on the property line where my house was built in the 1920s, so it has been accepted since then. But if the path is going to go right behind the house, I'm concerned about how close that path is going to be directly on top of the shed that I have there. Well, it's like a barn house in the back. And so my real concerns are safety along the back there with nothing else behind, and if you're going to be putting lighting back there as well.
Thank you. We'll try to get some answers a little later in the meeting.
Okay, Jacob, I'm trying to unmute you, so unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my name's Jacob Schumacher. My wife, Steph, and I live up here at the end of Cherokee, 816. So this will be right in our backyard as well. And generally we support Habitat. We support this project. But I just have a few concerns as well. And I'm pretty much echoing what's been said at this point. But Cherokee is a really narrow street. I'm concerned about it becoming a through street. We do have on-street parking on Cherokee. We have families with young kids play on the street. So I'm worried that the increase in traffic may not be safe, and also access onto Rogers, as someone mentioned earlier. I'm also concerned with the density. 70 units, by my rough count, that's about as many residences or as are on Cherokee, Chambers, Guy, and Duncan combined. So I'm worried that the increase in volume on all these 4 narrow streets will be unsafe. And I agree with what someone said earlier about developing all of the green space on the parcel. You know, one of the things we love about being up here is seeing all the birds and the wildlife back there. And I wonder if our new neighbors in the Habitat community would like that too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. That was the last of those, I think, Brad.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands raised. Are there anyone on the Facebook feed?
Just checking right now. I don't think so. No.
Oh, I do see one more hand raised.
Oh, yep, there. That was up before. Just a sec. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you. Please tell us your name.
I'm Aldona Reed, and we live on RCA Park Drive. So our backyard is going to, it overlooks the entire property. And I spent quite a bit of time. Eric was so gracious to give me time and explained many things for me earlier today. So I don't have a lot of questions. And I do appreciate all of my neighbors and their concerns, but just want to say that we're quite excited that we're going to have a neighborhood behind our house, and believe that the deer will move onto the park, which is where we see them many times. And we have been up in the Beeline neighborhood, and we've been out to the neighborhood off of Leonard Springs Road. And when we go into those neighborhoods, we see how well the homes are taken care of. We see gardens, we see children playing, and we believe that if we do have more families and more children visiting RCA Park, believe that might cut down on some of the shadier activities that do take place there sometimes. So just want to give our support and how much we really appreciate having a wonderful habitat in this town like we do and helping people have decent homes to live in. Thank you so much for all your time and all your hard work.
Thank you. All right, are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this petition? Okay.
Oh,
seeing
wait,
none.
we have a live hand raising here. Hold on. Let me get down to them just a second. Okay, Stephanie Johnson, I tried to unmute you, so then you just unmute yourself. There you go, I think.
All right, great. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and this is my husband, Josh Johnson. We're on Cherokee. And first of all, thank you so much for your commitment to affordable housing. This is something that was, difficult for us, as I think a lot of people in this neighborhood. So we really appreciate your commitment to that. Our big concern is it's just 70 houses. It's so dense. Also with, with Switchyard Apartments and the affordable housing apartment complex on the opening of Switchyard Park, that's just a lot of new development, a lot of housing all in the same area. Traffic wise too, it's already really difficult to get out of Cherokee onto Rogers. And it seems like, especially, with Cherokee, that's just going to be more difficult.
Beyond even just the difficulty to get out, like as, being frustrating, it's super, super dangerous. You cannot see, as traffic is backed up, you can't see around coming out of Cherokee. And so you just have to hope somebody waves you through and they're looking through on the other side to tell that nobody else is coming. So without putting in some sort of stop sign or something, adding 70 more, if you're looking at a car and a half on each of those on these streets trying to get out onto Rogers is beyond what will be frustrating. It'll be extremely dangerous.
And also, I second Adam's concern with the lighting on that trail. If there is a trail kind of goes behind our houses, on one side you have the back of people's houses, on the other side you have just open woods. It just seems pretty unsafe. So I'd just be curious to know a little bit more about that development as far as lighting or any safety measures. Also of concern, so we're putting 70 houses possibly in an area that is actually a food desert. The nearest grocery store is 1.3 miles away. So that's kind of concerning. It doesn't really seem like it's in the homeowners and tenants' best interest. Also, I did have some questions as far as with Habitat. I know the first development in Habitat in Bloomington was on the city's southwest side. And the second one was on the north side of the B line. And, the third one here is on the south side of town. Do you have anything planned for the east side of Bloomington?
And one final follow-up too with the pathway behind Cherokee. Is there going to be a crosswalk? Is there going to be something that can stop traffic? And even if it did stop traffic there, it's so backed up, I don't really understand how that could be safe. But the safety of getting from the walking or biking path across to Switchyard Park is a huge concern. And so how would that be handled?
That's it for us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? Last call for public comments. Okay, seeing none, then we are back to the commission for comments or a motion.
I appreciate several of the questions that were raised by commenters, and I wonder if we could resolve some of those. If people could speak to a couple of big, broad topics. The traffic is certainly one. I don't know if we can answer the question about lighting on Cherokee.
Yeah, I'd be happy to try to jump in and answer some of those. So one thing that I want to clear up just a little bit is the multi-use path and the Chambers Drive. So what they are showing is a multi-use path that connects from RCA Park, extends through this site, and then it kind of stops. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. And so it stops when it stubs into Chambers Drive. So from Chambers Drive, then there will be sidewalks, as is required on all new public streets, along both sides of Chambers Drive, as you can see. And then those will stop at the property line for here, because there's just simply not room along Cherokee, Chambers, Duncan, Guy, all of those streets to get in sidewalks. That was something that was a concern from staff of how do we connect this development pedestrian wise. Vehicular connections are there, but it's just as important for pedestrian connections as well from this development to Rogers Street. So given the narrow right of way or even lack of right of way along all of these stub streets, extending the pedestrians through there, it wasn't possible. So that's why the petitioner is looking at and pursuing the option of the connection along the north side of this property, along that electric line corridor that ties in with kind of what the Parks Department is looking for, that would extend pedestrian connectivity along that entire corridor along the north where it's more appropriate, where it's better and easier. So the multi-use path, just extends on this property. It kind of stops at Chambers Drive. I don't know if the petitioner has even given any thought to lighting along there at this point or not, but it just kind of stops there. So, as this petition, several of the adjacent property owners have brought up, and something that we hear on other petitions throughout the past years are connections. If you look at the map for all of these streets, they stub into this property. It was always the intention to extend these stub streets through this property, and that is something that the comprehensive plan and the transportation plan, all of our planning documents just reiterate over and over again the need for connectivity. It distributes vehicular connections. What we've learned through other developments certainly is that people will learn which of these streets are the safest to get out on. And it might be that most of the people end up using Bernard Drive to the south through Countryside and exit there where there is a little bit more visibility. Maybe they will go to Cherokee, but having these multitude of connections helps distribute and disperse that traffic so that everybody's not going to one place. Certainly the multimodal aspects of this, the trail to the north, the Bloomington Transit route.
Uh-oh.
Eric, are you still with us?
We might have lost him.
Whoa.
Well, while we're waiting for Eric, I'd like to invite the petitioner to feel free to respond to these questions as well.
Thank you, Brad. I wanted to thank everybody for their comments, and I also wanted to extend an invitation for all neighbors to contact us. They can contact me directly, or I know there's other people on our staff that are happy to answer questions. We understand this is a work in progress, and this is truly, we're in the early phases of this, so this is a good time for comments. And in terms of the trail, that is the newest part of this whole project. And in terms of lighting and that kind of thing, we would have to defer to the Parks Department. That's decisions that they will have to make if that trail does in fact take place. Speaking to our habitat, about our habitat homeowners, our experience, I just wanted to reiterate that they go through a year's worth of classes on home ownership and financial management. Our experience with our homeowners is that they are some of the most responsible homeowners in this city. They take pride in their homes and they take care of them. You can visit our current neighborhoods to see that. In terms of home values, our most recent build just appraised for $170,000. So again, our experience is that Habitat homes raise property values. So just to answer that concern. And then in terms of where we build, Bloomington is getting more and more filled in. Finding land on the east side has never been an option to us. So we love this location for lots of reasons, but one of the basic ones is that it's where we could find land. But more importantly, it's close to jobs, it's close to resources for our families, and especially for low-income families, that is critical. In terms of transportation, we did do a little surveying with our current Habitat homeowners. And our 20 families that are in the program, about 5 of them use public transportation, 5 of the 20. So not everybody has a car. So those walking trails, that pedestrian connectivity is going to be critical for this community, and it may not be as much traffic as neighbors may be anticipating. So again, just feel free to call me 812-331-4069.
Thank you. I believe we have Eric back with us now as well.
Hello?
Okay. Yes, Eric, we lost you. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I had like a 10-minute presentation and then I realized you didn't hear a word of it.
No. Well, I'm sorry.
So if you want, I only saw that Nathan, or I kind of heard that Nathan said a few things. So let me attempt to reiterate or repeat my wonderful response to all those comments and see if we can get somewhere again. You had
talked about the multi-use path ending, and talked
yes.
about the sidewalks. We heard that. We heard everything about the sidewalks and multi-use path. I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know where you lost me or not, so I'll try not to repeat too much of what I said. So the multi-use path, it just kind of tees into the Chambers Drive sidewalks. We looked at connecting all of those to the east, and there just wasn't right of way and room to do that along Cherokee and Chambers and Duncan. So that's why the path along the the electric line corridor toward the north that ties into the switch yard, played a key role in moving pedestrians to the east. The multi-use path mostly will be for the neighbors, honestly, of Chambers and Cherokee and Duncan, and certainly the people that live in this development as well. One of the things that we hear a lot with petitions is connecting to existing streets. The comprehensive plan and the transportation plan reiterate time and time again the importance of connectivity, both for vehicles as well as pedestrians. So having those connections is essential to creating the gridded network that our zoning code and the comprehensive plan encourages. And what we've also learned is having that distribution of connections helps disperse vehicular traffic so that everybody's not using one connection. They've got multiple ways to get in and out. So it decreases traffic on those areas. And it's very possible that the residents here might be using Bernard Drive for the majority of this to get out the countryside. So the Bloomington Transit also has pickup points along countryside as well. So that provides another opportunity for people to use public transit rather than their own vehicles. So that helps address concerns of increase of vehicles driving along those existing streets. Were there other questions? Did that help? I'm not sure what else Nathan was able to help maybe address with their timeline and construction. If I imagine he'd address that.
Tron here, and I was just thinking you could show the Guy Street and the curve, how it curves into Duncan to kind of not just extend it right to that connection that's going to go to the RCA area. It looks like that was, I'm not sure, maybe part of the design or maybe something you were working with the petitioner to try to mitigate some of the traffic issues. I think that is kind of a really neat feature to kind of show some displacement of traffic that could mitigate it.
So Tron, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. I lost some of what you were saying there. So you're asking about Guy Avenue?
Yeah, Guy Avenue goes into Duncan and it doesn't go all the way straight up to where you have the connection to RCA. So it looks like that helps mitigate some of the through traffic on some of those connectors. So I just feel like that's an added feature there that helps to mitigate some of the traffic that might end up on Guy Street, or people maybe worried about the RCA park and traffic coming through there and crisscrossing. It looks well designed where it's meant to really kind of focus transportation, and people aren't really going to find shortcuts, if you will. And maybe some of the concerns with traffic going up and down the streets are valid, but I think this design helps mitigate some of the issues.
Yes, certainly, I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners, either for staff or for petitioners? Or,
yes, I have a question.
Yes,
so
go ahead.
I look at the proposed site plan in front of us, and I see that all the corners, they bubble out a little bit. I am wondering, do we have provisions for the school buses to come through the neighborhood and be able to make the tight turns on the corners there? If we're going to have a lot of families here, we need to account for the buses as they are coming through in and out.
Yeah, so that is something that we would deal with the final plan approval. So what the Plan Commission is just looking at right now is the preliminary plan, which just shows the location of roads and just the layout of roads in essence. So those fine details of turning radiuses, sidewalk design, that is something that would be looked at more closely with the final plan approval.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners or a motion?
Question, right?
Oh, yes, Israel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard complaints about the security now in this moment, and with more families, 70, places, this might in certain way possible increase insecurity. So I don't know what plans do you have to first to help with the security in this area, and also the security that is going to be provided to more people, more families, and mainly because this will be a place with more children.
So I'm going to let the petitioner answer that question.
Sure, I can try to speak to that. It is not something we've planned for at this point, and actually, I think we heard some others in the public comments speak to this, that we actually think that more presence is actually going to create more safety. Adding population that lives directly on the park is actually going to result in more people being around. So it's something we will certainly discuss.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or?
Is there, sorry, Brett, is there one more community question, or maybe I was trying to keep track of some other community questions. It seemed to me the confirmation that the trees will remain, Mark Fife's original question. Is that true, Nathan? I think it is, based on what I saw, the pine trees he was referencing. I don't know, or Eric, if you have the map up.
We have met with Linda Thompson out there, and the tree preservation at the moment is just on the west side and the north side of the lot. Those trees were not necessarily in the tree preservation easement. So it also doesn't necessarily look like something we may need to remove. So they're not protected, but I can't speak to whether they'll be there for sure. Yeah, it'll be related to grading. And again, I think the tree preservation easement is something that'll get worked out during the plating. So.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, or are we ready for a motion?
Do we
I have one other question as soon as the dogs start barking, obviously, but they're not going to calm down. Can you hear me okay?
We got you. Yep.
Okay, so as far as open streets go in Allen Street, and how that is meant to kind of be kind of an open street concept, I'm really curious about where you have that pedestrian, and if you could zoom back in where you have the pedestrian path on there. Now, this is something I observed going out there and walking that area, and the owner of the dogs are here. So, but Chambers, like where the sidewalks are, I honestly think that could be like a potential greenway concept like Allen Street is when connecting up to Bryan Park. And when you go through the transition where it does have sidewalks and curbs, you just lose that entire feel. So it's kind of like a reverse concept. If you go to Allen Street when you're crossing Washington, I think until you get to Lincoln, it has sidewalks, and then as you continue up the road, it's just open from, and it doesn't have those sidewalks, and it creates a great green pedestrian feel. So I just wanted to kind of address that observation I had, that it might tie into that concept. And I don't, and building out those sidewalks now wouldn't really add to it. So if that's any idea that the city has, I would really look into it.
All right. Thank you.
Brett, I have a question for Eric just about process. So what we're doing tonight, or what you're asking the Plan Commission to do tonight, and I'd like you to just confirm this, is basically waive the second hearing so that you take this back to the Planning Transportation Department, figure out everything, and then it does not come back to the Plan Commission, but it goes directly to the council.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, in light of commissioner comments and questions here about the curb bump outs and Tron's just comments about the multi-use path and some of the lighting and the safety, like what is your thinking? And maybe you said this earlier, but I missed it. What is your thinking, the department's thinking around asking us to just move and send this on to the council?
So the things that the Plan Commission should consider in terms of waiving the required second hearing would be information that they feel is essential to determine if the standards of the district ordinance in the preliminary plan are appropriate, or if there's more information they need to approve the district ordinance in the preliminary plan. So would they like more information on the lot width reductions that they're requesting, or the lot sizes? What information do you feel like you are lacking right now that you would like before you could say, yes, forward this to the Common Council with a positive recommendation?
All right, Karen, could I maybe clarify? I don't know, are you asking about waiving the second hearing, or are you asking about delegating the final site plan approval to staff?
Well,
because I think they're really, both are being requested here, really. I mean, typically we might have 2 hearings on something like this before we make a recommendation. Well, not always, and occasionally we might. But I think by our standard process, after this is approved, even by the council, it would come back to us for a final site plan approval. That's being requested by staff, but we don't have a motion on the table yet. So if you want to see this come back to us for final site plan approval, you would want to include that in the motion, or exclude the delegation of that approval to staff from the motion when we make that.
Yeah, I was mostly just wanting to hear Eric's just the reasoning behind it, just to get that said out loud, so we understand.
Yeah. So the reason, you know,
Eric, oh yeah.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
Hello.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So our thinking, you know, basically on the recommendation for the waiver of the second hearing was, for the most part, you know, we expected concerns from neighbors, but for the most part, the petition is a fairly straightforward petition. They're extending the stub streets. They're connecting in accordance with what the comprehensive plan and the transportation plan is calling out for. You know, the land use was something that the Thompson PUD kind of called out for, that they, you know, single family was appropriate in this area. The land use is compatible with adjacent properties. So, you know, the waiver of the second hearing was kind of based on, we didn't really feel that there were a lot of things in the air that had to be worked out between the first and second hearing. You know, the street connections seemed pretty straightforward. The architecture was pretty straightforward. You know, so we hadn't really identified a lot of issues, but certainly if the Plan Commission feels like there's more information they need between now and the second hearing, then, you know, you would not approve the waiver and require a second hearing, with the expectation that there would be changes that you would want to see. Kind of likewise with the final plan approval, you know, that the petitioner feels pretty confident, you know, that this is the layout that they're going with. There's not really going to be much that's going to change. The road network is going to stay pretty much as you've got it now. So, you know, between what you're seeing now and the final plan, you know, we expect it to be almost identical. So, you know, the delegation to final plan approval just kind of helps speed up the process for the petitioner and reduces the burden on the Plan Commission for something that they feel that, you know, they're pretty confident with the layout and being able to address the issues that are on the table.
Great, thank you. So that's very helpful. So it's really good to read like the packet and the recommendations, and very nicely professionally presented. And it's super helpful just to hear you verbalize the summary of what the department is thinking of behind why they're asking us to do that. I find that to be incredibly helpful, and I'm supportive of the department's stance. And I really want to just say thank you for explaining that so well and in such a nice summary fashion.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to support PUD 1020, Habitat Humanity, to amend the preliminary plan and the district ordinance for the Thompson PUD to add 8.46 acres and allow these 70 single-family lots, and to also request delegation of the final approval to staff.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, there are within the staff recommendation, there were 6.
Oh, yeah. Yes, with the conditions.
6
Sorry.
conditions.
Yes.
Sorry.
The final delegation of the delegation of the final plan to staff was the first of those 6. So let me just make sure to clarify here, Julian. Your motion is to forward this petition to the council with a favorable recommendation, with the conditions exactly as they're written in the staff memo.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll need you to address whether or not you're recommending waiver of the second required hearing.
Yeah,
and that's on Eric's screen. Yeah.
Can we put make that in the part of the same motion, or do we need to do that separate?
Sure. This is your motion, so you are free to add a 7th condition, or add as well that your motion can include that waiver of the second hearing, forwarding directly to the Common Council.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. The motion is to waive the second hearing, to forward this to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation and the 6 conditions as included in the packet. Is there any final comments from commissioners before we vote on this motion? Commissioner Sandberg.
Thank you. In reading this proposal, Habitat has been a very good partner with the city of Bloomington, as evidenced by the first two communities. And so I was very excited to read this and see what the staff's recommendations were, and I did support it upon first blush. Hearing the members of the public tonight, I think adds a richness to the conversation because there are concerns. I think with respect to the density, it's been made very clear that this is going to be phased in over a number of years. So we're not talking about 70 units, suddenly appearing that are going to clearly cause some adjustment issues. Those adjustments are going to be made over time, and that's what makes me feel very comfortable about the level of density. And as many people have already spoken, this is critical to being able to get the affordable housing that this community desperately, desperately needs. And so moving forward on this, I think, is valuable. But there were some great comments made about the food desert. I think Johnson's made a good point about, again, as more and more people start living here, and we've got other projects along the switchyard, that hopefully is going to drive more energy toward the kind of food distribution that we're going to need as we have more dense populations. Many concerns about housing values and what's it's going to do, but I especially appreciated Mrs. Reed's comment about being excited about this because there's some kind of unsavory activity in that RCA park as right now. And I think always having more eyes, more population there is going to do nothing but improve the safety concerns in that area. So again, much appreciation for the public comment. That does help us in our decision making, and it helps us moving forward as this project becomes more fully developed. But I completely support the project and look forward to seeing it come online. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like Commissioner Kate has some comment.
I just want to second what Susan just said. I think this plan is really beneficial for the community. I appreciate the public comments. I do think that those help identify some issues for ongoing attention as this unfolds, but it looks great on so many fronts and very helpful to the community as well. That there are features of this, including that new multi-purpose path, which looks like it will be very beneficial for the rest of the community as well. So I think it looks really good all around. I'm very happy to support it.
All right, thank you. Any other final comments from commissioners?
I'll just add one final comment in addition to everything else everyone's already said about this. I think one of the most outstanding developments and aspects of this plan is the park-to-park connections. And I think that is such a wonderful way to think about this work, as we're building bridges from parks to park and really, I think, deriving tremendous public benefit from this project. So I'm really excited about it.
I want to quickly echo also the, it's been mentioned a number of times, connecting all of these dead-end streets, which I think is really great. There was acknowledged a concern earlier about somebody on Chamber Drive and how it can be difficult to turn out onto Rogers. And I think Eric did a good job of describing some of the benefits of the connected grid, but I want to point out those benefits aren't just for the new homes, giving them options of where to go out, but also today, if you live on Chambers Drive, that is your only option to come in and out. And so, even if it's peak hour and it's going to be hard to make a left turn onto Rogers, that's your only option. So once those connections are made, then you can also make those other choices. You can go down to Guy and turn onto Rockport, or go down and get onto Countryside. And so I think there's a lot of benefit there.
Thank you. Any other final comments? All right. I think we're ready to call the question then on the motion to forward this without a second hearing to the Common Council. A positive recommendation with the 6 conditions as outlined in the packet.
Okay.
Can I have clarification on who seconded?
I believe there was
John.
Don, yes.
Okay, thank you. Cochran,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Copper,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that passes 8-9-0. Is that right? Yes, okay. All right, so next up on our agenda then is PUD 12-20. This is Trinitas Ventures at 1550 North Arlington Park Drive. This is a request for final site plan approval. And I believe Eric Willet's got this one as well.
Thank you. Yes, so next petition. This is a request from the Trinitas development team for the project at 1723 West Arlington Park. Says the council or the Planning Commission is familiar with this site a little bit. This received the rezoning request earlier this year that was finally approved, and so the petitioners are moving forward with their final plan approval to allow for the carrying out of the preliminary plan that was approved earlier. So in essence, the preliminary plan was approved as the Planning Commission saw it. So the final plan that they're coming forward with tonight is almost literally identical. There have been no changes overall to the layout of the roads. There have been a few changes just to the on-street or the parking arrangement on parcel B, but I'll go through that just briefly in a second here. So just a real quick overview of the project. It's composed of 4 separate parcels. So you've got parcel A on the north side of the site that was approved for 45 single-family lots. To the south of that, parcel B was approved for a mix of townhomes and duplex-style development. Parcel C had a large 4-story multifamily building. And then just to the south of that, parcel D, again, was a mix of townhomes and attached residences as well. So the internal roads are all public for the most part. Parcel B, those will be private roads. They have modified the design of that to have parallel on-street spaces. There is an electric line easement that runs north-south through the property that would have some parking along the west side of that would be private. But overall, the streets in here would be public. There is a 10-foot wide multi-use path that extends from Arlington Park Drive or Arlington Drive to the east. The multi-use path extends through the site, goes south, and then connects down to 17th Street to the south of this. So there are still 2 connections that are shown extending to 17th Street. The petitioner is working with the adjacent property owners to get them to sign on to dedicating right away to make those both full public street connections. That would be a full public street connection out to Arlington to the east. So real quick, I'll just kind of go through each of the areas. As I mentioned, area A would be 45 single family lots. These would be dedicated to the city. There would be streets. These would all be alley loaded, public streets on the front, public alleys along the rear. So those would be dedicated to the city and developed according to the R4 standards, which, as we just discussed with the previous petition, allowed for small lot sizes, allowed for single family duplexes, triplexes. So the city is still working on a development plan for that, but those would be dedicated to the city and built with all infrastructure. Just to the south of that, area B, this is a mix of townhomes along the street on the north side, and the interior roads would be private. They modified the design of those streets to have parallel rather than the pulled in perpendicular spaces. So this creates a lot more of a neighborhood feel to this area, and certainly was an improvement. You can see here in this site plan, the hatched area represents the riparian buffer and wetlands areas. The Planning Commission approved those crossings, as the UDO does allow for crossings through riparian buffer areas as needed for connectivity. So one of the things that happened during the Planning Commission or the council review, some of the townhomes were brought up along the streets a little bit more, so kind of a staggered approach, which increases some of the modulation along there, which was certainly a benefit as well. But more or less, this is exactly in line with the preliminary plan that was approved. So Area C was the multifamily building. So this had 4 stories of apartments with ground floor parking garage, as well as a small retail component. The overall building size was reduced a little bit as a result of actual design drawings that were more accurately prepared. So that got a little bit smaller. So there would be a parking garage that would have parking for, I believe, 50 parking spaces, and this would serve all of the residents that live in this building. And I'll go through an elevation of that right now. So you can see kind of a masonry base around the bottom. The upper areas consist of fiber cement board that is a mix of horizontal as well as a vertical kind of board and batten look. It's got a pitched roof along the top of that as well. And so I believe that this also will have a white roof design, which is something that they called out for earlier in the preliminary plan hearings. So the area just to the south of that, Area D, as I mentioned, these are townhomes and paired patio homes. These all front on public streets that you can see here with parallel spaces. So these would be fully dedicated public streets that run through here. Again, this is exactly as the Planning Commission saw it not too long ago with the preliminary plan. So one of the things that we've been working with them are the design of the townhomes. So that was something that the preliminary plan urged diversity of architecture. So the renderings for these have a variety of building heights that you can see, as well as modulation. So they've got ins and outs along the building line. There are patios that are shown along the fronts of the units that give some diversity and break up to that as well. So you can see here another rendering. A lot of the end units and interior buildings kind of have built out dormers almost that give it more modulation. They've got sills and lintels along the buildings, as well as a diversity of shutter types as well, so that you've got a good breakup of architecture. You're not looking at the same building type over and over again. They've also got a variety of colors that they've shown. Those specific elevations were shown in the packet as well. So you just kind of get a feel here of how the buildings look along the street and the modulation that the petitioners were able to accomplish. So the staff is very, very satisfied with the diversity of the architecture here. They've also submitted a landscape plan that shows a typical landscaping arrangement around each building, consisting of a mix of flowers and shrubs and small trees, as well as interdispersed within the buildings. There will be tall canopy trees, in addition to the tree plant and the street trees that we've got along the fronts as well. So we've been working with them to build up the landscape plan, build up the architecture so that we've got a diversity. And so the petitioners have accomplished that to staff's satisfaction. So we didn't really have a lot of details that we were really trying to work out with the final plan. A lot of that got discussed at length with the Planning Commission hearings and the City Council hearings. The petitioner is finalizing the agreement with Bloomington Transit. That was specifically laid out in a detailed, reasonable condition. So that is being finalized as well. So with that, we are recommending approval of the proposed plan with the 8 conditions that are listed in staff's report. And real quickly, I'm just going to kind of address condition number 8. which deals with an outfall structure that is located on parcel C. So that is in an area that is roughly right around here. And that is an area where it is a tree preservation area. However, after discussing with the engineer, there are not any actual trees in that area where that outfall structure is being shown. So condition 8 is not needed since there are not any trees that are in that area. There is still a tree preservation requirement. So as it comes down to final grading, if it appears that there are any trees that will be impacted, then we will make them move the outfall structure. But condition number 8 is not needed at this time. So we are recommending approval with the 7 conditions that are listed in staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anyone from the petitioner from Trinitas with us who'd like to add anything more to the presentation?
Jeff, let's see, Jeff. Yeah, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Knabel. I'm with Trinitas Ventures. And I don't have any additional comments to add to Eric's presentation, but just wanted to say hello and thank you for your consideration. And our team is present this evening, including myself and Kimberly Hansen from Trinitas. We have our architect online, Dan Moriarty from Studio M. We also have Christina from Spring Point Architects, as well as Jeff Fanyo and or Daniel Butler on from Bynum Fanyo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners for either staff or for the petitioner at this point?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the last time we reviewed this, there were some questions about transportation and the transportation study that was actually, I don't know if there were some disagreements or different interpretations on that transportation aspect, but I remember that from the last conversation, and I wonder if there's been any further discussion about the in and out. I remember there being a weight that was determined when someone was trying to leave the area. I'm sorry, I can't remember all the specifics, but I wondered if you had any comments about the transportation implications.
Yes, thank you, Jillian. I meant to mention that in my presentation, and I got excited about that. So the petitioner did submit a traffic study for this, and there was a lot of information that kind of kept getting modified with that a little bit. So our transportation folks did look at that study. And we decided that the development that is being proposed here, all of the benefits with that, and the recent work that we just did to 17th Street, installing turning lanes wasn't something that was absolutely essential, and might have negative impacts to the infrastructure that we just put in. So we are not requiring turning lanes to be installed along 17th or Arlington. We felt like the impacts, for this development, as we mentioned previously, any delayed time on getting out was simply impacting the people that lived here. It wasn't immediately causing any kind of a hazard to the traffic on 17th or Arlington. But certainly that's something that the department will continue to monitor. And, if there are changes that need to be made in the future, we can look into that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, then we will go to the public for comment on this petition. If you are here from the public and you'd like to comment on PUD 12-20, please, in the participants tab, click the raise hand button, and we will unmute you when it is your turn. I'm not seeing any just yet.
Don't Let me check Facebook really fast. None there.
Okay. Last call for public comment on PUD-12-20. Okay. Seeing none, and we are back to the commission for additional questions, final comment, or a motion. Susan?
Again, I've been a fan of this project since it came forward, and it seems to have met everybody's suggestions. And I appreciated the last piece and the question about the traffic study. That's helpful. But I'm most excited about the parcel of land that's going to be dedicated to the city for development as we see fit. There just is so much variety here in this project that I wholeheartedly support it, and we'll be glad to have the chance to vote on it tonight. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm just seeing in the chat now that you may have missed someone who wanted to make a comment. Was that from earlier?
The ones from about Stephanie Johnson were from earlier.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, excellent.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I just wanted, if that's what you were seeing. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I just saw the Eric's response. I thought I missed something. Okay, very good then. Is there, I think this would be a good time to get a motion on the table.
I move that we approve PUD 1220 with the 7 conditions outlined by staff.
And just to be clear, that's conditions 1 through 7.
Well, yes, 1 through 7.
Included in the packet.
Second.
Yes. Okay, excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any final comments from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. Please call the roll.
Burrell,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes.
Akram,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Copper,
Yes.
St. John,
Yes.
Kate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that passes 9-0. Okay, so we are now completed our 2 petitions, and to the point in our agenda, we have suspended the rules to add a period of public comment. We're at that point now, so what we will do is we will we'll move to public comment. If you wish to make public comment, raise your hand in the participant window. We will unmute you when it's your turn. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to comment on any item that's not on tonight's agenda. And Jackie, would you tell us who's up first here?
Yeah, sorry. So Jim, Mr. Shelton, I'm going to unmute you in just a sec, and then I'll try to just screen. I'll let you know when your time is running short. So Jim, I tried to unmute you so you can unmute yourself now. There you go. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Jim Shelton with the Chamber of Commerce, but speaking at this moment on behalf of the CASA program. I can't resist this opportunity to speak to a different group of people than I usually do, and I was surprised to find there would be such an opportunity. And so I want to try to spread the word about CASA. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. These are volunteers who have been trained by the CASA program to work for and work with and support and advocate for children who are in the court system because their parents have abused or neglected them. Some of you may remember that just about a year ago, you probably read or heard that we had adequate CASAs for all the cases that were being found at that time. This was due to the recruiting efforts of the CASA program, but also to DCS's changing their standards. DCS is Department of Child Services, for bringing a case. DCS has reverted to their original standards, and the COVID-19 situation has put a tremendous strain on families. You can imagine people being out of work, having no income, having no child care available for their children, no school to send the children to, puts a tremendous stress on the family. And as a result, we've had many more cases brought, to the extent that at the moment, well, 2 weeks ago, we had 49 children waiting for a volunteer to be assigned when the court asked us to provide one. So I bring this forward to get people started to think about it. It's a great volunteer opportunity. You can learn more about it by going to monroecountycasa.org. Click on the volunteer link. There's a frequently asked question page and a lot of information. We have a training that started a week ago. One of the first things that would happen is you would apply, be interviewed, pass a background screening, and then have a 30-hour training session. Well, there's one going on now, so obviously you can't join it if you're interested. We have definitely got one scheduled in October, and we're, because of the demand for more CASAs than we've got, the program is seriously thinking about having another session later this summer. So please, folks out there, look into it. It's a great way to help your community. It's a great way to work and help kids. They desperately need a volunteer like this to advocate for them. Most of the kids are under 5, so they really can't speak for themselves. They can't judge. Even if their parents are cooking meth in the house and endangering their health, they still want to be with mom and dad. So it's a great thing that you can do to help. And I thank you guys very much for the opportunity to bring this to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't currently see any other raised hands. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Feel free to raise your hand in the participants window, or wave your hand on the video if you can't find that.
Don't see any else.
Anyone else on Facebook?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us for our second Zoom-based Plan Commission meeting here. Appreciate your patience with the technical challenges, and hope we've done everything we can to give everyone an opportunity to speak, and look forward to seeing you all in person again soon. But that's the end of our agenda, so we are adjourned.